Nvidia reporting another earnings beat on the top and bottom lines this week, but now the attention is turning to tariffs as President Trump says he's imposing an additional 10% tariff on China next week. For more, we're bringing in Patrick Moorhead, founder, CEO, and chief analyst at Moor Insights and Strategy. Patrick, always great to see you. So let's talk about President Trump. He likes tariffs. He believes in tariffs, Patrick, as a policy tool. I'm interested to get your thoughts about how tech investors specifically should be thinking about that dynamic. I asked Patrick because I know that's a topic you've been thinking about.
Sure. So first of all, everybody needs to realize that Trump uses tariffs as a negotiation tactic. And he also wants to deliver on the promises that he made when he was running for president during the election. There's also some hysteresis going as well, where he did cut some deals in his first term that really didn't pan out, like China. So there's some memory there. It's very hard for the investor to play this chess game because the volatility is so high between no tariffs and 100%. I think he's just looking for the best deal. I think historically, what Trump has threatened versus what has happened is in the middle. And I know that's not very satisfying, but it is what it is. So if you're putting together your spreadsheets on impact, what I have seen though, Josh, is some incredible reactions in the supply chain. You know, companies like Dell, companies like Cisco, and the hyperscalers moving the different chess pieces around. But the one chess piece they cannot move is Taiwan, where most of the semiconductors are built, namely Nvidia, AMD, a lot of Intel, pretty much all of Qualcomm and Apple.
And there's no plan B for that, right, Patrick? You know, in other words, and to be fair, there's no development on that front right now in terms of China's relationship with Taiwan, in terms of U.S. relationship with Taiwan, and, you know, kind of its support for its traditional ally. But there, you know, we talk a lot about supply chains for different products and that there is a lot of diversification, right? Apparel manufacturers moving stuff to Vietnam or what have you. That hasn't, to be clear, that hasn't really happened with the chip industry, right?
In mass, it has not. TSMC did set up shop in Arizona. You have Samsung, who, you know, is building a giant facility here in my backyard in Austin, Texas. But these things take time. I could see a negotiated settlement where companies like TSMC agree to increase investment substantially in the United States without CHIPS Act money, albeit it takes 3 to 4 years from the shovel in or the design to pumping a chip out to get them to have the Trump administration not go through with those tariffs. So it's kind of a time-related element.
You know, Patrick, obviously we all know how much tech is assembled in China. Outside China, you look at these alternative manufacturing locations, you think of India and Vietnam and Malaysia. I'm just curious to get your thoughts, Patrick. What are sort of the advantages but also the challenges of those places?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, there were a lot of companies who got a lot more precise about their supply chains. We saw a tremendous amount of companies that used to do final assembly in China move those operations to Mexico, and all those ODMs like Foxconn added new facilities there. Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, all are growth areas, but like we saw with China 20 years ago, there's a learning curve. There's a supply chain curve. And, you know, listen, when I was setting up factories 30 years ago with the Taiwanese to go through China, there were places that didn't have electricity, didn't have paved roads, and those things all need to come together. I think the wild card here is India, right? India is growing to be the next potential China. and you see a lot of companies diversifying their supply chains, but nobody is unhooked from China, right? Let's say they move 10, 20, 30% of it there. It's just very difficult. Even Mexico to the US, right? The average electronics worker gets paid around between $4 and $5 in Mexico, compared to an average of about $20 here in the United States. So you're going to pay somewhere, and where you move those flexible supply chains, I think, will be dependent on what the tariffs versus the costs are.
As you say, this is all pretty long term. Let's talk a little bit shorter term. We got Nvidia this week. We're getting Broadcom earnings next week. And the reaction in Nvidia was obviously quite interesting, given that there was nothing sort of intrinsically in the numbers that should have triggered the reaction that it did. So does that tell us anything about what to expect, not just from Broadcom's numbers, but sort of from the reaction also?
Yeah, and this might sound a little jaded, but in this area, a meet is a miss, right? Nvidia had a triple beat, which it looks like people kind of viewed it as a meet. People are looking for a reason to get out of these types of tech stocks versus stay in. Part of that is the giant run up. But here's the thing. Demand should not be in question for Blackwell. Mag 7 capex of $325 billion remains. I think Blackwell is sold out. Nvidia is indicating it is. TSMC says it's sold out for calendar 2025. And then the only question that's coming into play here is if it can deliver as many as it needs, if the tariffs will impact it, which you and I talked about already, and how long the run can go on. Listen, it's hard to make a confident case beyond calendar 25 that the rate of growth continues. We've already seen a expected deceleration in the growth rate.
Final question, Patrick. Let's spin ahead. Broadcom reporting earnings next week. I'm curious to get your take. What do you think we're going to hear from Hock Tan's company?
I think we're going to see similar growth rates in terms of acceleration versus Nvidia. And the reason is because they have this accelerator business that they keep adding customers to. That's a play for them, but also the networking that goes along with this. While Nvidia does have its own networking solutions, the primary breadwinner of all of this GPU goodness is Broadcom. So as Nvidia grows, so does Broadcom. And let me be very specific. It won't be the exact percentage growth rate, but an acceleration of what Broadcom has been doing in the past.
Patrick, always great to see you. Always great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have me on.